To make a mug, you will need something to wrap your clay around. I'm using a can. I'm going to push the can onto my clay, roll it up so I know exactly how wide to make my can. I'm going to use my clay knife and my spacers to make a nice straight line. I will cut down the side and then peel off any extra and do the same thing on the other side. I also need to trim the bottom so it's nice and straight. Before I trim the top, I want to use my can to measure. I'm going to loosely roll the clay around the can and move it all the way up to one end meets the other. Then I'll use my knife to cut off the excess. Keep all of your extra clay because you will need it for the base and the handle. Now I need to wrap my can with a paper towel. This is so it doesn't stick to my can when I'm smoothing out my clay. Now I can roll my clay around my paper towel in my can. In order to make an even cut, I'm going to cut through both sides and peel off the extra. Then I have to slip and score my pieces together. I'm going to score by lightly scratching across one end with my clay knife. And then I have to do the same thing on the other side. For slip, I'm going to stick my finger in some water and rub it across one of the sides. You have to make sure that you can see the clay coming off on your fingers to create a glue type structure with the clay. You have to make sure you have the seams nice and tight and squish them together by pushing them together. Having water on your fingers and your thumbs really helps with this part. Use your finger to smooth out any rough edges and to get ready your seam. Then use a damp sponge, make sure you wring it out, and smooth out the rest of it. This is why we put the paper towel on, so that it doesn't stick to the can when I'm pushing it. Now take your extra pieces and smush them down. Roll them out using the sizers so they're not too thick or not too thin. This is how you're going to make your base. Take your mug still on the can, put it in the middle, and I like to use a pen tool because it's a lot easier to trace around. So I'm going to trace around the shape of my mug in order to get the right size base. Make a little slit off to the side so it's easier to peel off the extra. Again, keep your extra pieces. Now I need to score around the edge of my base. Now I'm adding slip by rubbing my finger with water around. Make sure you can see the slip on your finger to ensure that you're making enough. Place it on the bottom of your can and start to smush the seam onto your can. Make sure the seam disappears. You can put water on your thumb and your fingers in order to smooth it out. Another trick you can do if it gets too lumpy is to carefully roll it on your board to get it nice and smooth. You can also take a damp sponge, make sure you wring out your sponge, and you can smooth out the seam. Now that our base is on, we can take our extra scraps to make our handle. For the handle, we are going to make a coil. So we're first going to squish it all together into a nice tube. Then onto our canvas board, we're going to roll. Start with one hand and then gradually move to two hands, starting in the middle and slowly moving your hands to the edge of your clay. You need to make sure your hands are moving so that it doesn't become lumpy in the middle. Remember, you want your coil to be no thicker than your thumb and no skinnier than your pinky. When you're done, trim your edges, and we are going to bend this into a question mark shape. This is the easiest way to make sure that it sticks really well to your mug. First, you are going to pinch one end and then pinch the bottom. When they're pinched and flat, they're easier to stick on. Then you're going to take either your knife or your pin tool and you're going to scratch some small scoring spots for where your handle is going to attach. Take your finger to make some slip and cover up the scoring patches. Then take your handle and smush it onto those spots. Make sure you really push it on and use your finger with a little bit of water on it to smooth it out. There's a little bit of space between our handle and the mug that we need to fill in with a small coil. So we're going to take a super small piece of clay and we're going to make a really, really tiny skinny coil. This is going to help the two pieces stick together. So I'm going to take my knife to score a little bit, add a little bit of water. I'm going to put that tiny little coil right in the space between my handle coil and my mug. I'm going to use the edge of a wood tool dipped in water so I can fit in there a little bit easier. And you can see there's another little seam right on the bottom that I have to do the same thing. Tiny coil, slip and score, fill it in. Now that my handle is on securely, I can finally take out my can and my paper towels. I have to make sure the inside of my mug is also smooth and the rim especially. I'm going to place the side of my hand along the side of the mug so that my mug doesn't lose its shape. And then I'm going to slightly smooth around the edge with a damp sponge.